What's going on, everyone? Meteorologist Jonathan Kegges with you. We are coming at you live on clickorlando.com and also on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, feel free to post where you are watching from in the comments. And if you could please do that, let me know where you're watching from. We can take a look at where you are tuning in from across the country. Of course, in this video, we are going to, in this live stream, I should say, we are going to focus on the snow that is moving east out of the plains into the Great Lakes. We are going to focus on the wind that is going to no doubt be the biggest issue with this storm. And then, of course, the secondary component with that, really the third issue with that, is going to be the cold that some of us have already started to see trickle into the parts of the country. So it's here, the crazy cold that we've been advertising, and some of us have already started to see the heavy snow. Some of us have already started to see the brutal cold start to come in. Hey, what's going on, Sanders? Good to see you this morning. Good morning in Titusville. Good morning in Longwood this morning. Just working some things around here on the platform, on my desktop setup, and then we are going to get all in it, waiting for some more people to join. So if you're tuning us to clickorlando.com, welcome. What's going on in Longwood? Hey, in Ormond Beach, how you doing? All right, the Western Cape of South Africa. How's it going? Welcome to the live stream. That's awesome. All right, so we're going to get right into it now. And again, we're looking at this getting underway, especially in parts of the plains and into, get the comment off there so you guys can see it. All right, let me see here. Watching from Tampa, Florida. All right, welcome everybody. So we are going to get right into it here. And the main thing that we are going to be watching, first of all, is the heavy snow that's still falling in Kansas City. I already know there's major delays out of the Kansas City airport and flights going to it. If you're trying to fly to Chicago or to Kansas City out of Orlando specifically, we know of already dozens of flights that are impacted there. So keep that in mind that the delays are unfortunately already starting across parts of the country. That is no doubt going to grow as we move over the next couple of hours. Just switching some things around real quick. Bear with me, and then we're going to rapid fire some things through, and then we can take a look at specifically some of the things and some of the locations that we are likely going to see impacted again considerably here over the next couple of days and really getting into next week. What we're looking at now is some of the heavy snow that is sliding in to parts of the Midwest. Hey, what's going on, Bo in Cape Canaveral? Good to have you on the live stream. All right, we are ready to rock and roll right now. Okay, so the heaviest snow now is falling from just outside of Wichita, Kansas, into Kentucky. And if you want to see some of the things that are coming in your direction, I'll pull up our live look. The shot from just above my head is a very bouncy, a very windy, a very Arctic-like Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So shout out to anybody that may be watching from Sioux Falls. It's cold. It is a nice 19 degrees below zero. We had an awesome shot of a nice halo and a sundogs in the view. That has since gone away, unfortunately. So we can't show you that anymore. But If you are living in that area, it certainly looks and feels like the Arctic, and that is something that is going to continue here really from the next couple of days going forward. One of the things here that is the component of this is obviously the cold. Look at the temperatures right now. It is 33 degrees below zero in western Montana. Casper, Wyoming this morning set their new all-time record at 42 degrees below zero. That is without the wind. So it just goes to show, while this will modify a little bit as it moves across the country, this is pure Arctic air that has been charging up for the last week. We've been advertising this in some of our earlier videos last week, kind of highlighting what we're going to be dealing with Christmas week. And there you go, 33 degrees below zero. It is 1 degree below now in Kansas City, and it is 22 degrees below zero in Denver. Again, that is without the wind. It is way colder when you factor in the wind. I want to show you here kind of how this progresses over the next couple of hours if you are planning on traveling. Again, biggest travel trouble spots are going to be, no doubt, Chicago. And it's not only because we have issues in Chicago, it's really about that Chicago is, unfortunately, in a situation like this, one of the main hubs that we have. And if Chicago is impacted by weather, there's that ripple effect. Really, the two big ones, really three. I mean, when Dallas is impacted by weather, there's the ripple effect. Chicago, certainly. Atlanta is another one. So post in the comments if you're watching on YouTube where you are planning on flying to, if you are planning on flying or driving. If you're watching on clickorlando.com, welcome. Again, we are going to pinpoint where some of this nastiest stuff is going to go. So fast forwarding in time, I'm going to pull out my trusty arrow here, and we are going to do some pinpointing again through Chicago. This is 8 o'clock tonight. Most of Indianapolis now getting in on some of that heavy snow. It's not going to last too terribly long, the snow. There's not a ton of moisture with this. We were talking about the highest impacts weren't really going to be coming from the snow part. It's the wind and then the brutally cold air behind it. That extends then down into Cincinnati late this evening, through Memphis, into parts of northern Arkansas. And then we see this really start to blow to the east. So here we go in western Ohio. Still hanging on to a little bit of light snow by midnight tonight into Chicago. Down into Cincy, through most of Kentucky. Nashville, I think we're going to get some snow. Not a ton, maybe up to an inch. Some of us could get a little more. And then you'll see some flakes flying into the higher elevations of Georgia, into Alabama and Mississippi. Not going to amount to much, but you'll still see some of those snow globe flakes as the colder air rushes in. Speaking of that, if you are driving in and around places like Ohio, western Pennsylvania, West Virginia, in those areas, watch out for something we call a flash freeze. It's not some kind of buzzword that we just throw out there to be like, okay, we've got some crazy weather coming in. There's going to be water on the roads from the heavy rain that is going to happen before the blast of cold air. Of course, we know when water gets cold, below 32 degrees, that it freezes, and that's exactly what we're going to be dealing with. I mean, we've already observed that in places like Kansas City. Of course, we were cold this morning, but it's going to get even colder, and we are talking about even colder air coming through. South Bend is one of those spots that we are really going to be watching for some big-time snow, especially just southeast of South Bend to the northern tier of Indiana, certainly Michigan. The two big areas, I think the highest impacts here of this blizzard, and there is going to be, a lot of high impacts from this blizzard. Western New York, and I'm going to show you why in a second with the wind, and then Michigan, specifically Western Michigan. It's going to be nasty. We're talking potential for 2 feet of snow in Western Michigan. Have you guys at 1 to 2 feet. Wind gusts of 40 to 50 miles an hour is going to make that drift, so it's going to be impossible to measure. Like, that's when there's a lot of questions in the video yesterday. How much snow are we going to get? Well, there's going to be a couple of inches across a widespread area of the country, but it's it's crazy that you're not going to be able to really measure it. We had that same kind of deal in South Dakota with the last blizzard just last week. So just nuts. Hey, Kevin, what is going on in Lakeland, my man? Thank you for joining the live stream. Absolutely. And it's really, if the closer you are to the Great Lakes, I'm going to show you that wind forecast in a second. It's going to be nuts. So while the heaviest snow is going to come to an end, and I will show you that here on Christmas Eve, the wind is going to be going nuts still in Ohio, Indiana, even Chicago, Western PA, up the Blue Ridge Mountains into New England. And it's about this time on Friday that we will get a little bit of snow in interior New England. Again, it's all rain in the big cities from New York to Boston to coastal Maine. Interior Maine, I think we'll get some snow. Upstate New York, it's game on. In terms of the snow, again, it's not a ton across most of the area. I think a general 3 to 6 inches throughout most of the state of Indiana. I think a general 1 to 3 in places like the northwestern side of Kentucky. I think the model here is a little too high in Nashville, but I think 1-2 inches certainly probable. Cleveland, we start getting some of that lake-enhanced stuff. So we're talking more like 4 to 8 inches of snow. And then, I mean, where you see the purple here, that is way north of 6 inches. I mean, we're talking a foot plus north, really to the east of South Bend, where you see the purple there through Muskegon, Grand Rapids. Ton of snow coming for you. And then Buffalo. I mean, I don't know if we've seen, I mean, I can't remember when we've seen a winter this bad. Of course, I know we've had a couple of crushing lake effect snow events in the past. 2014, I believe, 2006-ish. But a second one is coming, and this one may even be more brutal than the first. It's not going to rival the amount of snow that fell with the one we just had a few weeks ago, back in November. It's not going to rival that. I mean, we could still pick up 1 to 3 feet of snow in Buffalo, and really just north. I think this one is going to focus just to the north of Buffalo rather than towards Orchard Park like what we saw the last time. Nonetheless, in addition to the snow, and you see up here, 1 to 3 feet towards Watertown, it's going to be the wind. So we are going to go hour by hour. I'm going to go back over to the other computer here. I'm going to check to see if we have any comments. And Austin, Texas, how's it going? Nice and sunny. Atlanta, Georgia, we may see a few flakes. You got it. Thank you for joining the live stream. Love it. Texas, sunny and nice. Watch what happens with the wind. And then this is going to be, I'm just laughing at this comment. There is no relation, I promise. There is no relation. Yes, good point, good question. If you are tuning in from Florida, welcome. Of course, that's where we are based, in not so sunny Orlando, Florida. We've been locked in the clouds and fog, and that's where we stay again today, under the overcast skies. Cover your plants. If you are certainly in an area where we still have things growing, the deep south, in Orlando, and we are conducive to having plants out, it is a good idea to do that. If you are heading out of town, do it before you leave. If you are just in town and waiting for the blast of cold to come, now is a good time to do that as well. Again, this arrives really tomorrow night, Friday night into Saturday morning. So keep that in mind. Again, anything that's left uncovered is not going to make it. This is some brutally cold Arctic air that's coming down. Likely the coldest we have seen in years, at least from a Florida perspective. And I mean, again, we had Casper, Wyoming today. If you missed it earlier, set an all-time record low temperature of 42 degrees below zero. Just crazy. Crazy, crazy cold. It will be on Saturday. Christmas Eve could be the coldest afternoon that we have felt since 2010. So again, that's a big-time cold coming through. All right, what are the odds of planes flying into O'Hare on Saturday? things improve, but it brings up the good point here, and this segues nicely to what I'm just about to show you, and it's going to be the winds, and you see that here gusting to 30 to 40 miles an hour from the Front Range all the way through the plains. You see that there, 38-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and I think that's even being underdone in Oklahoma. Sending this into tomorrow, Chicago, we're going to have wind gusts of 30 to 40 miles an hour. This is, again, at midnight tonight. As the storm kind of ramps up, you keep on hearing that bomb cyclone term. So it's actually a thing, and this gives me a little chance to get on a soapbox. It's overused, but it is a technical term. It refers to a storm system that bombs out, undergoes bombogenesis, which is a 24 millibar drop in pressure in a 24-hour span. So it is a technical meteorological term that you're going to hear a lot of, because that's what it's going to do. When you see it kind of explode here, just in terms of the bright purple showing up. So we still have wind gusts on the order of 35 to 45 miles an hour in Chicago. Toledo, 40 to 50 miles an hour. And then for anybody tuning in around Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, this is going to be nuts. If you are trying to fly into Buffalo, it's pretty much going to be game over. You're not going to be able to get there on Friday. Because of this, you see that here, 70 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts. That is hurricane force winds off of and around Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, from Watertown to Buffalo to maybe even as far south as Erie, Pennsylvania. This is going to be, a crushing storm for Western New York. Right along the lake from snow, wind, and cold. Really off of, towards the Finger Lakes, it's not going to be a ton of snow, but it's going to be a ton of wind and cold. So, this is big-time stuff. And, again, this is the ripple effect that we're talking about. And it remains to be seen what the outcome it is. I'll show you again. I'll bring up the live picture as we keep an eye on Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where we have a nice live look here. Just boy, look at the camera shake. It's 19 degrees below zero in Sioux Falls. That's where, the wind chills are way colder than that. The Arctic air mass already doing its thing in the northern plains and upper Midwest. We'll take this further out in time. This is early Saturday morning, so now we're into Christmas Eve. Pittsburgh, we're talking wind gusts of 40 miles an hour. Watertown pushing 60. Still have wind gusts of 60-plus miles an hour in Buffalo, New York. This is going to be, it could be a devastating storm for Buffalo. 70 to 80 mile per hour winds, 1 to 3 feet of snow. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be an ugly Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. There's one thing with liking snow, but when you add this much wind to it, you're not going to be able to do anything here. You're not going to be able to drive. It is certainly not recommended to do so. And it's just going to be interesting to see how the airports in the West are going to be able to kind of recover here. If you're driving in and around Minneapolis to Green Bay, Wausau, Wisconsin, Prairie-du-Chien, Madison, Chicago, Rockford, Peoria, the snow is going to be over, but it's going to be blowing around. I don't know if we'll verify ground blizzard status, but it's going to be close. And this is, again, it's the wind with this. It's not so much the snow. It is, so good question, Blaze. We'll get into that. I'll show you. The storm has not come to Indy just yet. So the storm is not there just yet. So you'll see the clouds, then you'll see rain, and then you'll see the snow blast in, and that's when the Arctic cold front comes through. It is 100%, Joan, coming from Siberia. This was charging up last week. It has dislodged, and it has now entered the northern tier of the country. It's crazy. So Roger asked a good question here. What does this mean for Florida crops? Certainly, if you have the opportunity to cover your plants, it's a good thing to do. but I assume that you're mentioning the citrus crop and other crops here that is you pretty much can't do anything about. I know that one of our meteorologists here, her family is a fern farmers, so they're in crazy preps now to try to do what they can to protect that crop. Certainly, the citrus farmers are going to be doing that as well over the next 12 to 24 hours as we await the Arctic blast. So you'll see the iconic pictures of the citrus crop having the icicles. Again, that's a good thing. Whenever the farmers put the water on there, water, of course, holds the warmth longer. So that's why they spray the crops with the water to try to keep them warm. So yeah, and there's a good report. It's crazy. It's the temperature drop is insane. It just comes up on you and saying these Arctic cold fronts are crazy. Tina in Columbus, you are going to turn windy. I have you at about 2 to 4 inches of snow in Columbus, and the wind is going to be nuts, 30 to 40 mile per hour gusts, and then the temperature kind of falls out. Speaking of which, we're going to take a look at some of those temperatures. So we're getting into Friday morning now. And all right, this may look like that, all right, Orlando misses out again on the cold. Like this is, you see those memes all the time that the place to be is Florida, that we're not participating in winter. Oh, this time we are. Here we go. You see it here by 7 o'clock on Friday morning. It's still very warm in Orlando. Don't get me wrong. You're going to wake up in Central Florida, and it's going to be very nice. There's going to be showers around, yes, but it's going to be relatively mild compared to everybody else in the country. Look at this. Way below zero in Montana again, Wyoming, Colorado. Here comes that Arctic front that our friends in Missouri were telling us about that have already come on through by 11 o'clock on Friday. Now, don't get me wrong. 45 degrees to anyone else watching across the country. It's very warm compared to what we are dealing with elsewhere. But then there we go. 20s and 30s invade Florida by the early part of Saturday morning. This is early on Christmas Eve. I keep on talking about it. The only place to really escape this Arctic blast in the lower 48 is going to be southern New Mexico, into Arizona, and then into Southern California, maybe even Las Vegas. We will get into that. Hawaii is a good spot. Although we just had a Kona low go through to make some nasty traveling out west, way out west. Or the Caribbean is good. The Bahamas are going to get a little chilly. Not as cold, though, because the Atlantic is still warm out there, so we're going to be a little more climate-controlled over that stretch. I'm going to head back over to the comments here. All right, good question. That brings me to the next part of this live stream. I'm going to pull back up my weather graphics here, and I'm going to show you hour by hour if you guys are traveling. And I'm going to take you to the day after Christmas as well for anybody that's tuning in to this live broadcast if you are interested in that going forward. Some of the comments are making me laugh. Hey, Panama City, what is going on? Where are you? I thought you were in Texas. My bad.
I needed ice today.
All right. So now we're going to get to it. So here we go. This is as of 5 o'clock now. We're going to go hour by hour or day by day. The big trouble spots here on your Thursday evening, so later on today, if you're trying to fly out, are still going to be really the same issues that we're dealing with right now. Chicago, that's when our heaviest snow arrives later on this evening, down through St. Louis, into Little Rock, even Fayetteville, and then getting towards Indianapolis later on this evening. You see that kind of flare up there of the heavy snow. As we move into Friday afternoon, the trouble spots are still going to be the same areas because of the wind, as mentioned. Then we're going to move some heavy rain, maybe some light snow, into Friday afternoon, into the D.C. area, into the I-95 big cities of New York, Philly. I think we'll see a little snowfall in Philly. It's not going to amount to much. This is mainly rain. And then this is when we really crank up that big lake effect storm off of Ontario and Erie. We keep the lake effect rolling in western Michigan. But then we also add more trouble spots in the Pacific Northwest. So like Seattle, we're going to see that pink popping up to the west now of the Cascades. Some freezing rain is going to be possible, so it's going to be an ugly travel day out west, way out west for us in the Pacific Northwest. So again, Seattle, Portland, kind of an ugly day. Some snow in the higher elevation, so the passes are going to be treacherous. More snow coming back in to Idaho into western Montana. There is 3 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Eve, still the same trouble spots. Now, getting into Christmas Day, we have a new system coming through, and this is going to bring some post-Christmas travel issues. This is at 8 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day. For the most part, we're doing okay. We've quieted things down. It's still windy. It's still cold. It's still snowing in and around the lakes. Again, white Christmas guaranteed for a lot of people because of this. It's just getting there, so please travel safe. Let me pull back out my trusty arrow. Here is our new big system. That green mess working into Seattle, western Washington, into the Cascades, eventually into Portland. That is what is going to be causing trouble as we move into the post-Christmas day. I'm going to advance this to December 26th. Things are quieting down considerably in the east. We still have some lake effect snow off of Ontario, believe it or not, and off of Lake Erie. A little bit of snow into central Iowa, but it's going to be this guy here. Early in the morning on December 26th, and you see where we start to get the heavy snow and heavy rain back into play. A cold rain in Seattle, very heavy rain on the western side of the Cascades, and then some heavy snow on the eastern side of the Cascades. So while it was relatively quiet for Thanksgiving travel, weather-wise, across the country, making up for it now. I assume that's northeast Pennsylvania. We're going to get some heavy snow today for a brief time. I think 2 to 4 inches for you up towards like Scranton and the Poconos. And then we'll have another 1 to 2, maybe 1 to 3 inches with this coming through. There's not a ton of snow, but it's going to blow around. Same thing for you in Vermont. So just a lot of nasty stuff there coming through. And again, it is all going to blow around considerably. That's the main part about this system. So there you go. Hope that helps you in Vermont as it arrives, again, moving over the next few days. No, I mean, great point. We had yesterday in Wyoming, I think it was Cheyenne, recorded a 25 or 27 degree temperature drop in 15 minutes. So again, it is crazy, crazy cold. The drop in temperature is going to be significant. And it's going to happen fast. That's why we talk about that flash freeze, especially in the east. What's going on in Kissimmee, Berlinda? We are, again, we're going to start off warm tomorrow. It's going to be Friday afternoon and certainly Friday evening. That's when this blast of cold comes in. And I think we're going to wake up below freezing in Kissimmee on Saturday morning, Christmas Eve, below freezing in Kissimmee. The cold arrives in Florida tomorrow in the Panhandle in the morning. And then as we move into the afternoon, that's when it moves into central Florida. And then we get into the 40s. So that brings up a great point when I say it gets into the 40s. If you're watching from South Florida, this is the iguana falling out of the tree weather. This is when it gets to around 40 degrees. They start to become stunned. And then as you get into below 40 degrees, that's when they come incapacitated and then start falling out of the trees. So seriously, it may seem funny, but watch your head in Southwest Florida because where the iguanas are, again, they're going to be falling out of trees. Southwest Michigan, Susan, is basically like it's the highest impact from this storm. There are 2 areas that are really going to be impacted significantly by the storm. Off of Lake Michigan into Michigan, and then off of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario in western New York, and then right along the lake in into northwest PA, certainly western New York, and then as this drifts up into Canada. Cuba's going to be down in the 60s for like a day for the overnight lows, but it is still really, really warm down in the southern Gulf, in the Florida Straits, and in the Caribbean. So we're going to rebound nice and quick. Same for the Bahamas and into the Dominican Republic. Edina, Minnesota. I think this. We'll take a look. We're gonna get back. I'll show you what the actual radar is doing right now. I'll show you. I'll get back to that the radar picture here. If you give me 1 second, just gonna switch some sources here on my computer so I can show you. We are done with the snow for good. So the Clipper is now out of here. It's going to be about the cold. I mean, we're talking way below zero. We are used to that up there in the land of 10,000 lakes. Chicago, we are starting to see pretty much right on schedule from what we talked about in yesterday's video. This blue here is some really heavy stuff. I want to see if my radar is not calibrated to see the snow rates there. Let me see. Yeah, it doesn't even pop up for the rain, but some really heavy rain now moving, heavy snow. That's what the blue represents on your screen there. Madison, Wisconsin, Oshkosh, getting to Green Bay, onto the west of Rockford. This very narrow blue there. Davenport, Clinton, Galesburg. We're getting it right now. I mean, some very heavy stuff. Again, it's not going to be snowing for a long time. We talked yesterday. I know there were some of the crazy snow totals shared through social media for Chicago and all this stuff through Kansas City. The phase or the coming together of the two systems that, again, system number one is out here. We're going to see that explosion further up here now. It was expected that this storm, this little piece here, was going to come together with this kind of about right here and then just blow through like St. Louis and Chicago. Sorry for my crazy John Madden illustration there. But now we have piece one kind of lifting up that way. We have the big Arctic Clipper going that way, and then this is where the explosion happens, and that's why we get basically hurricane force winds off of Lake Erie and off of Lake Ontario. So just crazy impactful. But again, we're just going to see blowing snow through the Twin Cities. That includes Edina, back toward Rapid City. Again, here is that. I love going back to this shot here of Sioux Falls. That is where we're taking a live look at above my head. The blowing camera, it certainly looks like it could be Antarctica with the snow, the fresh snow on the ground. We had a great Arctic shot here. We had sundogs in the background. It was a beautiful shot. But just nuts. Again, the Arctic front means business. As a lot of you guys have mentioned in the live chat here, and thank you so much for commenting. Again, we're coming at you live on YouTube. We're coming at you live on clickorlando.com as well. If you would like more information on this Arctic cold, you can head to the website, clickorlando.com. There are a plenty of resources there. I know one of the common questions that I've been getting here in Central Florida, again, that's where we are based out of Orlando, is, are my pipes a concern? And what I will say there, if you're in a hard freeze watch, so in North Florida, certainly we are in that hard freeze watch, meaning that we're going to get to temperatures below 28 degrees, and we will no doubt be below freezing for more than 6 hours. I would think about leaving especially the exposed outdoor plumbing to a slow drip about the width of a pencil, or to get some insulation to insulate those pipes before this blast of cold arrives tomorrow, because that will run the risk at that point of having some pipe issues in addition to the issues with vegetation, sensitive plants, things like that. So keep that in mind. Also, I like to say, if you're finding us for the first time, welcome. My name is Meteorologist Jonathan Kegges. Well, I guess my name isn't Meteorologist. I am Meteorologist Jonathan Kegges. We are coming at you from Orlando, Florida, watching the ripple effect that this blizzard is having on the travel. We talk, again, about all things weather here. in our little playlists here. So if you're interested in that, we'd love to have you on board. And thank you so much for the reports. Again, you can hit that thumbs up. That helps YouTube kind of push this out. I know a lot of people are looking for some of this travel information today. So please give this a thumbs up. Give the video a thumbs up if you're finding this helpful. And if you like talking the weather, please hit that subscribe button as well. I would appreciate that. I'm going to go back to the comments. Let's see here. Thank you. I love how you think we sound alike. I promise there's no relation. There's no relation. You've got it, Sandy. Ice pellets, then snow. Thank you again for that report from Missouri. Just a whole lot of cold and blowing snow. So yeah, no, that's what we can deal with. And when we're talking about that flash freeze potential, if you are driving north or if you're from Florida or from the deep south and you're not familiar with that term flash freeze, it's whenever there's water on the road, then we get the falling temperatures very quickly, and then anything that's below freezing, of course, freezes. That water that was above will quickly go on through and freeze. We are coming at you from Orlando, Florida, but we are concerned with, of course, everybody across the country, and that's tuning in from the nice and warm Caribbean right now. Edina, Minnesota, again, just some blowing snow and a lot of cold. Joan, great question, my friend. I mean, it depends upon what you think is a warm-up. So I think we are going to warm up really as we get to Thursday. I have you getting, a couple days after Christmas, I have you getting back into the 50s and 60s. So if you call that a warm-up, we'll have to wait to... My days are all screwed up because there's so much happening. There you go. Brian, we were talking about you earlier that really a lot of times people say, okay, Florida's missing out on the winter. The only spot to escape the cold in the lower 48 anyway, of course, you can go to Hawaii. You can go to the Caribbean. Puerto Rico, shout out to anybody tuning in from Puerto Rico. You're going to miss out on this blast of Arctic cold. Is the desert Southwest, Southern California. It's going to be great out there. It's going to be gorgeous. And as Brian puts out, as mentioning here, it's going to be near 80 degrees. Alan, what is going on in Syracuse? It's coming for you. Again, not a ton of snow. But it's going to be cold. Indianapolis, it's a weird one. I have you at about 2 to 4, maybe getting up to 3 to 6 inches of snow. So it's not a complete, you're not going to get buried in the snow. It's going to blow, though. The snow is going to blow. I guess seeing the weather is too, but the snow is going to blow around a lot. Okay, we're going to have a lot of blowing snow, so it's, potentially near blizzard conditions, things like that in Indy. So all of the above. Alrighty, guys. Hey, I want to thank you all for tuning into the broadcast. Great conversation again. Thank you for all of the reports from those that tuned in outside of Florida. I appreciate those because, again, it gives us a heads up again just how quickly this temperature drop is going to be and just how extreme this is. Again, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps YouTube, again, push it out to more people if you're tuning in from YouTube. If you are tuning in from clickorlando.com, welcome again. This is the time that you want to cover up your plants. If you are in Florida or anywhere in a warmer climate, because they will not survive, I have to answer this question because that's where I'm headed in a couple of days. That's my hometown, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I have you guys at that flash freeze potential tomorrow before the cold air comes through. The snow, not a ton, maybe 1 to 3 inches, and then it's going to blow around a lot. Then it's going to get really cold. We could have wind gusts 40 to 50, maybe even up to 60 miles an hour. So the wind is going to scream there as well. So just keep that in mind. If you're planning on flying there, my flight is Saturday, and I'm worried about the wind having an issue on flights if you're flying in that direction. And that's, again, everywhere in the Northeast. Still on Christmas Eve, concerned about the wind having an impact on those things. It's going to be really, really windy in North PA. Still not a ton of snow unless you're right by Lake Erie. But in northern PA, it's going to be a couple of inches of snow and then the wind. Alrighty, guys, I have to run because I have to go get ready for our noon show here in Orlando. So if you are tuning in from Central Florida, from Marion County, for us into Brevard, Kissimmee, St. Cloud area, Celebration, good afternoon. Tune in at lunchtime at noon. We're going to have a rundown on the timing of this front. There's also a severe weather threat tonight south of Orlando. So I want to mention that if you're tuning in from clickorlando.com or watching on YouTube from the Central Florida area, especially south of Orlando, there's a chance for some strong thunderstorms out ahead of this Arctic cold front. So I want you to know that. We're going to have the rundown on that bad weather. There's so much to talk about in the weather. I guess it keeps me employed. So that's good stuff. But again, I just don't want anybody to have to travel in this. I know a lot of people are, and that's the bad side to this. I hope you can get there safely, of course, and you can just hang out with family and friends. You don't have the outside to escape to because it's going to be so darn cold if family starts annoying you. All right, so I want to get into this real quick. Alan mentions one weather report watch at 2 to 3 feet in Buffalo. Yeah, that's certainly possible, especially the city and points north. I think this is going to work their way through. I do think, I mean, you're talking also 60 to 75 mile per hour wind gusts in Buffalo, like a basically hurricane of snow. It's going to be wild there in and around Buffalo. That's awesome if you like the snow. I mean, let me go back to the radar here. And let's check out Oklahoma. I think that might be overdone in Oklahoma because it's just blowing through so quickly. If this would slow down a little bit, we can get some better snowfall totals. And, like, yeah, if you are, like, in and around Tulsa, I think, but like Lawton, we're missing out. Norman, Oklahoma City, just a few flakes right now. The heaviest stuff, a good heavy snow band. It's going to move into Springfield. Tulsa, we're getting it. It's going to move into Fayetteville shortly if you're watching from there. Joan, depending upon where you're flying or where you're driving around to on Friday, I do think you're going to have a shot for black ice. There's going to be a lot of it around. Just because we have a lot of water in the east from the heavy rain prior to the blast of cold, so anything that's wet is going to freeze very quickly because, as others have mentioned that have already dealt with the Arctic cold frontal passage, that we are seeing it there. That's great advice from Connie. Use common sense. The traffic is nuts. Driving around yesterday, there was a lot of traffic out here in Central Florida. We'll go back to that radar, Nathan, in a second. Tennessee will get snow, especially the northern half. I think maybe 1 to 2 inches of snow, like places like Nashville and points north. So I think you're going to get a white Christmas. I just want to say, be very, very careful. This is basically going to head down. I mean, the blowing snow, I don't know what your route is, but just please be very, very careful because there's going to be a lot of blowing snow on the way down to Georgia, and especially if you have to drive through any mountains. Again, I'm not sure of the route that you are taking, but just please be careful. And again, be smart. If things look kind of nasty, just don't chance it. We'll take one more look because I'm interested at Tulsa. So there's another little banding feature developing right south of Wichita that's going to kind of push through that way. And a lot of heavy snow in through here. If anybody's watching from Kansas City, I'd love to know how much snow that you guys got. It's still snowing lightly, but you're done with the heaviest snow. Your ice will basically come from, Cindy, in North Carolina if there's wet roads and then the colder air goes over those roads. We're not talking about really, you might see some sleet pellets, those ice pellets. We're not talking about a freezing rain event with this time to kind of bring down trees or things like that. So the ice will come from the form of the roads or objects being wet, then that blast of cold coming through, and then some sleet pellets, so they're already frozen before it hits the ground. There you go. Just be smart. Remember, Jeeps don't do anything on ice. You can get through snow, but it doesn't matter what you're driving. Ice is not going to be fun. So again, just be mindful of that. It helps, but again, just be mindful of that. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I have to go get ready for the new news. You got it, Connie. I really appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much again. If you're watching this live stream on clickorlando.com or on YouTube and you're from Central Florida, tune in at noon. We're going to break down this system locally. Again, we have a severe weather threat tonight, mainly south of Orlando. We're going to pinpoint that. And then we're going to talk about the timeline of when the cold arrives, which is tomorrow afternoon. And I mean, again, as others have... As others have pointed out that have tuned in from Missouri and points to the west that have dealt with this front, the temperature drops very, very quickly. You will see that happen in Florida as well. And again, we are going to break that down. Start covering your plants. And if you do have exposed pipe that you're worried about, start thinking about getting that trickle going. About a pencil width so that your outdoor pipes don't freeze. Your indoor should be okay, but if you're concerned with that too, trickle length. Good stuff. And as he's mentioning here, it doesn't matter how well you drive. It's the other people that you have to watch out, and that's the wild card too. So that is great advice. And that's the worst thing about winter driving. If you are experienced in it, the other person might not be, or they might be goofing around and doing something else. And you can never predict what those people are doing. So there you go. Alrighty, guys. I do this all the time. I say I'm going to leave, and then I'm talking more because there's great questions coming in. There's great conversations here. So thank you guys for finding us today. I appreciate you. Please stay safe if you are traveling. If you are in Florida or parts of the Deep South, cover your plants. Start to protect your pipes, especially northwest of Orlando. And have a great Christmas. If you're celebrating Hanukkah, have a great Hanukkah evening. We're on the 5th night now, of course. Again, please be safe out there if you're traveling. It's no joke, the cold, if you were to get stranded. Again, it's going to get really, really cold, and that's what I'm concerned about. If you have pets, bring them in. Check on the elderly. There's an opportunity for a lot of power outages, especially in the Great Lakes and Northeast from the wind, which is never good when you're talking about this kind of cold. So, again, make sure that you are checking in on your friends. Be kind to everybody. It's a stressful time of the year. Just be safe. Alrighty, guys. I got to run. Thank you so much for tuning in. Travel safe, everybody.